In 2007, a single tech company held a brutal monopoly over the professional world. It controlled over 50% of the global smartphone market. It was the ultimate status symbol. If you were a CEO, a high-flying Wall Street investor, or a politician, you didn't just own one, you were addicted to it. They called it the BlackBerry. From Capitol Hill to elite corporate boardrooms, its security was legendary. Even President Barack Obama refused to surrender his device to the Secret Service. The company behind it, Research in Motion, looked completely untouchable. They were sitting on a multi-billion-dollar mountain of gold, presiding over a global tech empire. But just a few years later, that empire didn't just shrink. It completely flatlined. Their global market share plummeted from over 50% to an absolute, undeniable zero. This is the autopsy of a corporate giant that was handed the future and tossed it directly into the incinerator. This is the post-mortem of BlackBerry. To understand how BlackBerry died, we first have to understand how it came to rule the world. In the early 2000s, cell phones were treated mostly as toys or basic communication tools for the masses. But Research in Motion targeted a completely different demographic, the high-value corporate professional. They engineered a device built for utility. It featured a physical, tactile QWERTY keyboard that allowed executives to type out long, complex business emails with lightning speed while on the move. They built a proprietary enterprise server infrastructure that offered unhackable, end-to-end encryption. For corporations and government agencies, it wasn't just a phone. It was an essential, secure mobile workstation. Then came BlackBerry Messenger, or BBM, long before WhatsApp or iMessage existed. BBM created an exclusive, closed network ecosystem. If you had a BBM pin, you belonged to an elite club. The network effects were massive. The company's stock skyrocketed, and profits reached record-breaking highs. The leadership team grew incredibly comfortable. They believed they had built an impenetrable fortress around the enterprise market. They assumed that as long as corporate IT departments demanded physical keyboards and maximum security, their kingdom was completely safe. It was a fatal assumption. On January 9, 2007, a man walked onto a stage in San Francisco holding a piece of glass. His name was Steve Jobs. When Apple unveiled the original iPhone, it fundamentally shattered the tech industry's status quo. It had no physical buttons, a massive touchscreen, and a full desktop-grade internet browser. It was designed to change how human beings interacted with technology. But inside BlackBerry's headquarters, the reaction wasn't fear. It was sheer, arrogant dismissal. The co-CEOs of Research in Motion publicly mocked the iPhone. They called it an expensive toy with terrible battery life. They insisted that no real business professional would ever trade a physical tactical keyboard for a piece of glass that collected fingerprints. They argued that Apple's digital keyboard would be an absolute nightmare for typing professional emails. They completely failed to realize that the smartphone market was shifting away from corporate IT managers and moving directly toward the everyday consumer. Even worse, they underestimated the power of software. While Apple was building an open app ecosystem that allowed developers to create thousands of new utilities, BlackBerry stayed stubbornly protective of its aging, limited operating system. By the time they realized the consumer world was rapidly abandoning them for touchscreens, the water was already rising above their heads. Panic finally set in. In a frantic attempt to answer Apple, BlackBerry rushed their own touchscreen device to the market, the BlackBerry Storm. It was a total operational disaster. The software was incredibly buggy, the clickable touchscreen felt cheap, and the user experience was deeply frustrating. Verizon, their primary carrier partner, had to process millions of dollars in returns from angry customers. The storm didn't save the company. It severely damaged their reputation for absolute reliability. In a desperate bid for survival, they tried switching to the Android operating system, launched a failed tablet called the Playbook, and repeatedly rebranded their software. But it was too little too late. The corporate world realized that iPhones and Android devices could now handle corporate emails just as securely, while offering an infinitely better app experience. The network effect inverted. People traded their BBM pins for cross-platform apps, By 2016, BlackBerry officially announced it would cease all internal hardware development. The physical phone that defined an entire era of global business was officially dead. The post-mortem of BlackBerry offers a brutal, clinical lesson for every entrepreneur and market strategist. Their downfall wasn't caused by a lack of engineering talent, and it wasn't caused by a lack of capital. It was caused by the ultimate corporate sin, arrogance. They fell deeply in love with their past success and grew completely blind to shifting consumer behavior. They assumed their historical moat would protect them forever, ignoring the reality that in the tech world, if you stand completely still, you get run over. BlackBerry didn't just get beaten by Apple. They chose to let their own empire fade into irrelevance. Analytics, diagnostics, insights. Thank you for watching Corporate Postmortem. If you want to understand the data behind the destruction of global business giants, hit subscribe, and we will see you next week.